Okay, so every year I test a lot of cheaper bike parts from places like AliExpress. Some of the stuff is a bit trash and I do have issues, but I find a surprising amount of decent gear. So the bike I'm going to show you is a roundup, an amalgamation of this year's testing. I've cherry-picked parts from several builds that I've done and combined them together into what I believe is the best value road bike you can put together right now. I'll cover each component, but importantly, everything on this bike has been tested extensively. I didn't just buy all the bits and kind of throw it together last week. Some of the parts have well over a year of real-world riding on them. I'll obviously break down the total cost and weight, and I'll also compare it to some big name equivalents, so you can make up your own mind as to whether this is a path that you want to venture down. So sit tight, I reckon this is going to be a good episode. My name, as always, is Luke, and yeah, welcome back to Trace Velo. Okay, before we dive in, I did a similar sort of video about a year ago now, but things change fast in the world of budget bike parts. Some of the advice I gave back then is obsolete now. For example, the frame I used has been discontinued. It's not made anymore. And in other cases, better options have just cropped up since. But you'll also notice a few of the parts haven't changed, and that's simply because nothing has kind of come along and beat them in the last year. So think of this as a sort of yearly series. As of filming, this build represents what I believe is the best price to performance road bike that you can go out and build right now. No question here, the Key-on-Key frame from a brand called OG-Evkin. It's an endurance style carbon frame. I've been riding it well over a year. At this point, it's been fantastic, no issues at all. I think it looks really nice. An integrated carbon bar of your choice comes included, and with a discount they put together, you can get it for $765 or about 570 quid. Yeah, decent value, I think.
Now, for transparency, I didn't pay for this frame. OG-Evkin sent it over for review, but prior to working with them, I had bought two frames from them with my own cash, and I was really impressed. One of which was actually the now discontinued frame I recommended last year. It's also worth stating I did have a small issue with the bars included with this frame, and I covered that in this video, which I'll link down below. But chatting directly with OG-Evkin, they found the problem in production and sorted it, which is great. But there are no exposed cables up at the front. It's all routed through the bars and the headset, so everything looks super clean. And because I'm focused on budget, I've been running a cheap mechanical group set on this bike. Now, I did a video last year installing the group set and cabling everything, so if you're worried about routing the shift cables and brake hoses from both shifters through the kind of tight spaces in the bar and the headset, that should cover everything and answer your questions. But yeah, just a great all-round road frame. Really enjoyed using it this year.
So I've got two options for you here, both carbon, both 50mm deep, and both tubeless compatible, but at two different price points. The cheaper option, these wheels from a brand called Riot. They cost me 300 quid, but I have seen them as low as 265. I've used them on a couple different builds this year, so easily over 1,000 miles on them with no issues. Not the lightest at over 1,500 grams and only 21mm on the inner rim width, but great build quality. I think they look really nice, and for the money, they've got some really nice hubs as well.
The next option, and the one I favour, these ones, again from OG-Evkin, and again, they actually sent them over to me earlier in the year. But yeah, riding them over the summer, I've been really impressed. A great all-round option that doesn't massively compromise in any particular area. Slightly more money at 539 quid, but wider at 23mm on the inner width and lighter at just over 1,300 grams. Admittedly, not the stiffest wheels laterally, but plenty stiff enough. And if anything, I've come to realise recently, a slightly more forgiving wheel just makes them nicer to ride, especially on longer days in the saddle where the roads aren't always perfect. Like I said, a great all-round wheel set. If you can afford to drop a little more money, these are well worth it in my opinion.
Also, while we're on the topic, I just want to kind of be clear. The frame and this wheel set from OG-Evkin are the two things on this build that I have not paid for. They were sent over for review. So if that's an issue for you, totally understand. I just want to make sure everything is out in the open. But yeah, all the other bits on the bike did come out of my own pocket. But yeah, OG-Evkin, like I said, I'd bought stuff from them in the past and was really impressed, hence the reason we started sort of partnering together. Also, I want to make it very clear, I've not been paid directly to kind of give these guys a positive review. Hopefully that comes across, because I was quite keen to point out the issue with the handlebars that's now sort of been rectified. I mean, I did get the frame for free, fair enough. But yeah, the only revenue I sort of get is if you choose to buy something from them and use my code at checkout. I do get a small cut of commission. But yeah, basically, I'm really trying to be very transparent because I think it's really important with trust and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway, enough waffle from me. Let's crack on. Right, I've covered this a lot recently, so I'll be quick, but honestly, I've yet to find a better option in this category. The value is just unrivaled. So the L2 R9 disc is a fantastic option here. Prices fluctuate, but you can usually get it for about 110 quid. Upon initial install, I was slightly concerned that this plastic shift lever would end up snapping, but after thousands of miles and well over a year of constant use, I have had zero problems.
It's mechanical 11-speed, which is still the sweet spot in terms of price to performance. It looks clean, ergonomics are nice, the hydraulic disc brakes are great, and the shifting is spot on. Now, to be clear, it is not quite as good as mechanical 105. If you can afford it, the R7120 is a better option, but with the right setup, which I actually cover in this video, it can get very close to Shimano levels of performance. I've also ridden the Sensar Empire HRD extensively this year, which is another budget option in this category, but the R9 disc just about takes it. The overall build quality is a little bit better, if you ask me. I think L2 actually released a small generational bump to this group set, so I'll need to check that out next year. But yeah, the R9 disc still top of the pile for a decent budget group set.
I've had two of them this year, both have been fantastic. The ZTTO SLR Gen 3 cassettes, a great choice here. You can find them in loads of different colors for 60, 70 quid, and because they use a two-piece aluminium and steel design, they are incredibly lightweight. For reference, the equivalent Shimano Dura-Ace cassette is 193 grams. This one is way cheaper and it's 117 grams. Yeah, just nuts.
Now, if you live somewhere mountainous and you're in the aluminium climbing gears the whole time, you'll be lucky to get 2,000 miles out of these. However, where I live, it's pretty flat. I think 98% of the time I'm in the steel gears, so 3,500 to 4,000 miles is easily doable. As mentioned, 11-speed is still the sweet spot. Prices are a bit lower than 12-speed ones, but yeah, highly recommend these. I wouldn't buy any other cassette right now.
So previously, if you were focused on value, my recommendation was to stick with 6-bolt disc rotors. But over the last year, AliExpress has been flooded with loads of cheaper center lock options. So with that in mind, this is my recommendation. Center lock disc rotors from a brand called VXM. Now, another brand called Maroka has an identical design with a couple of different colors if you're interested. But yeah, I've been running these pretty much all year. They look really slick. I love the kind of vibrant colors, and they're solidly made. The rivets holding everything together are well constructed, which is often a weak point on these cheaper rotors. And the bite and the kind of brake performance has been fantastic. I mean, they're less than a tenner on AliExpress. I really, really like these. So easy one here, and my advice hasn't really changed. SRAM PC 1110 chains. Now, with 11-speed, chains between SRAM and Shimano are generally interchangeable. I mean, all the group sets I run are based on the Shimano standard, and in fact, even when I ran full Shimano gear, I still used these chains because they were generally the cheapest. I mean, you can get them on eBay for 10, 13 quid. I have heard Ultegra chains tend to shift better with Shimano gear, and the prices have come down quite a lot recently, so you can get them for about 20 quid, so that might be a better option for you. But the SRAM chains, they are the cheapest, and they've always worked for me. If your focus is value, which it is for me on this build, just stay away from tubeless. The cost of the tires is about twice that of regular clinches in most cases, and it is at least twice the faff as well.
With that in mind, again, same as last time, I've had great luck with these Goodyear Eagle Sport tyres. I've ridden them all this year, very few flats, great grip in the wet and dry, and they're not super heavy. In a 700x30C, which is what I run, 275 grams per tyre. For reference, GP 5000 tyres are about 260, I think, so yeah, very close there. The regular folding clincher tyres can be had for around 30 quid each, maybe cheaper, so great option here.
So a year or two back, I recommended this saddle right here, actually. So it's from a brand I'm not super familiar with. Is it Zeus or Zeus? Not too sure really, but yeah, the construction is really cool. So the base is completely carbon, including carbon saddle rails here. And then the top, the cushion, as it were, is this kind of 3D printed rubber. Basically, this thing was super comfortable. I rode it for ages, but it wasn't cheap. It was 90 quid on AliExpress.
However, recently a brand called Riot, same one as those wheels, released pretty much the same one for less than half of that. Again, carbon base, 3D printed rubber cushion. I got mine for 36 quid. I've used it all year. It's lightweight, comfortable, a great option for this build.
Now, I did pick up another saddle recently, actually. This one here, and it's pretty savage, to say the least. So it's completely carbon, absolutely no padding on this thing, and it's ultra lightweight. I think when I weighed it, it was under 60 grams, which is just crazy. Now, I've only ridden it on a couple rides so far, and it's been promising, but I don't have a great track record with these ultra light saddles because they tend to crack kind of right here where the carbon is thinnest. But if it works out, the weight savings would be pretty tasty, so I'll have to keep you posted. In September last year, I covered these pedals from a brand called Oniri. They cost me just 40 quid on AliExpress and made of carbon composite with titanium axles. They weigh just 200 grams. Now, for reference, a pair of Dura Ace pedals are heavier at 228 grams, and they're more than 3 times what I paid as well.
They're SPD SL compatible, clip in securely with a wide, stable pedal platform, and I'm happy to report they've lasted well over a year's use. Very little visible wear to the rear clip, no issues with durability, and you can service them too. So yeah, all good. Now, I couldn't find a rider weight limit, but if you're over 100 kilos, maybe consider the version with a steel axle, but other than that, a great way to drop a bit of weight from the bike.
Okay, so no particular standout recommendation here. I happen to be running a ZTTO bottom bracket on this build. Cost me just over 15 quid, I think. And yeah, no issues. Although, as mentioned, if you can find bottom brackets from a brand called Genea, or maybe Genewire, those are really good in my experience. But a quick tip from me, with all these cheaper bottom brackets, when you get them, make sure you pop the dust caps off and put a little bit of grease there next to the bearings. It just helps keep the water out and increase longevity. Okay, so Crankset is an interesting one. Again, no particular standout for me this year, actually. The Magine P505 power meter crankset has been pretty good, and yeah, it is good value, I'll say that much. But early on, the single pinch bolt holding the non-drive side crank arm on, that came loose twice on me, actually. Luckily, I noticed mid-ride each time, but I'm sure you can imagine that could have been quite bad. So yeah, not ideal. This carbon crankset from a brand called Rero has been pretty good with no real issues, but I've mentioned this before. The SRAM dub axle is a little bit annoying. With the cheaper stuff on AliExpress, it always tends to follow the Shimano standard just because it's more ubiquitous. So with a SRAM dub axle, it can complicate things, especially if your frame has a BSA bottom bracket. For example, getting the spacing right either side can be a bit of a pain. That being said, performance-wise, it has been absolutely fine. Plus, 150 quid is pretty reasonable for a carbon crankset like this. So as long as dub isn't a problem on your setup, this could definitely be worth considering.
And lastly, probably my favorite of the three, this other carbon crankset from Rero. It's well over 2 years old now, but I've used it all this year and it's been great. It also uses the Shimano standard 24mm axle, which is a big plus. The only hiccup was the crank arm bolt snapping on me last September. I grabbed a replacement on eBay for about 8 quid, and since then it's been flawless. Yeah, just an annoying issue at the time. At 110 quid, it's the cheapest and actually the lightest of the three, which is why I'm using it on this build. But yeah, each of these cranksets has a couple of caveats, so none of them get a full recommendation from me, if you kind of see what I mean. So for carbon bottle cages, my advice, just get ones that look like this. You can find them all over AliExpress for under a tenner. And for bar tape, I'm actually using this really cheap stuff from eBay. Cost like 3 quid but it's pretty rubbish. I wouldn't recommend it. So at the moment, dealer's choice on that, although I have just bought a whole stack of bar tape from AliExpress to test, so video on that coming very soon. But anyway, let's get this bike on the scale. So with both pedals, bottle cage and computer mount up the front, just over 7.6 kilograms. Not half bad, if you ask me. Now the cost, 1,658 quid. Bear in mind, that's with the slightly more expensive OG-Evkin wheelset too, which is worth it, in my opinion. But if you opted for the cheaper Riot wheels, just over 1,400 quid, but it would be a little heavier, around 7.8 kilograms. So let's get a reference. Canyon is a great place to start here, and the closest in terms of spec is the Endurace CF7 Limited, or LTD. Carbon frame, mechanical 105 and hydraulic brakes. Now it's more expensive at 2,150 quid and way heavier. With a medium frame weighed without pedals, bottle cages and computer mounts, it's 8.72 kilos. My build is over a kilogram lighter in a large frame with all those things included as well. Now you could go cheaper at Canyon. The Endurace CF6 is actually very close in terms of price, 1,699, but comes with Tiagra rather than 105 and weighs nearly 10 kilograms in a medium. Looking at Sigma Sports here in the UK, for 1,700 quid, you can choose between these two, the Specialized Alley Comp or Cubitane, both with mechanical 105 and hydraulic brakes, but again, both way heavier at over 9 kilograms.
Honestly, it is difficult to find direct comparisons because these days, anything classed as lightweight, so basically close to 8 kilograms or less, generally comes with electronic gears and therefore carries a hefty premium. For example, sticking with Canyon, the Endurace CF SLX8, which comes pretty close in terms of weight at 7.84 kilos, well, it's got Ultegra Di too, so the cost is much higher. I think it's nearly 3 times the cost of this thing. Yeah, 4,649 quid. I could look elsewhere, but the fact is, for the cost of this thing, you're not gonna get much from any of the big brands or retailers these days. Nothing close to this bike, that's for sure, but there is obviously a massive trade-off. With this thing, you've got to build it totally from scratch yourself. Warranties or returns are difficult to process or just non-existent with a couple of the bits on this bike. There's no manuals or like torque specs. I think I got torque specs with the frame and the handlebars, but nothing else. So yeah, you're on your own there. And as I've demonstrated several times, with these cheaper parts, things rarely go together first time straight out the box. But in return, what you get in terms of value for money is just nuts. Like I said, I think in this, guys, it's got to be the best price to performance road bike that you yourself can go ahead and build right now. So I'll put links to all the parts talked about in the description down below in case you want to check it all out. Yeah, leave me a comment with any sort of questions you've got. I'll try my best to answer as many as I can. And yeah, see you next time.